Hi, I'm Vince from multiversitycomics.com. I'm here at New York Comic Con 2013. I'm with Cameron Stewart right now, and we're going to talk a little bit of Sin Titulo. So how's the Comic Con going for you right now?
This show is big and loud, and it's fun, I guess. I really haven't been here that much. I've tried to stay away a lot of it. So it's the first stop on my big book tour, and so I have to keep my energy up for the whole 7 weeks that I'm going to do this thing. So
yeah, I was just going to say you're embarking on a big world tour here, right?
Well, North America.
Is it North America? Okay.
North America and a little bit of England.
Okay, yeah, I thought I heard something like that. So if you would give us a little bit of intro to Sin Titulo, and then I'll get into some deeper questions a little bit later.
Okay. Well, it's a comic that I did online. I started in 2007. I finished it in 2012, which I won an Eisner for it in 2010 for the best digital comic. And after winning the Eisner, Dark Horse approached me and asked if they wanted to, or if I would like to have a print edition. And so they just released it in a really beautiful hardcover. I'm really really happy with it. So it's really nice to have it out in a physical form after being online for so long.
Yeah, and I for one, I read it as it was being released online, and I reread it now in the hardcover edition, and something that really struck me was that on every single page, it's not necessarily a cliffhanger, but there's something that sort of digs into the reader, something that keeps them interested, something that piques their interest and gets them to keep reading. Is that by design, I suppose, for the digital release?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely by design. It was, I mean, when I originally did it online, I was doing it 1 page a week. And I felt like because there was going to be a week between them, you really needed to end each page on something that was a hook to bring the reader back. And I've said a couple of times that I was influenced by Lost, and a lot of people take that the wrong way. What I really meant, when I said that I was influenced by Lost, was that that show, whatever you thought of that show, and its terrible ending or whatever, but like whatever you thought of it, one thing that it was extremely good at was being a serial show where at the end of each episode there was always this thing right at the very end that even on the mediocre episodes it would just be like that last moment would be like, God damn, I got to see the next episode now. And so that was something that I kept in mind when I was doing the online strip, and with a week, it was 1 page a week, so it was a very small amount of story that you were getting. So I wanted each page to have a sting at the end that was something that really made the readers want to come back that following week or want to subscribe to it or whatever. But I think that even as a collected edition, it gives it propels you through the book. I mean, there's a momentum to it when you're going, where you want to just keep turning the page to see what's next, which I think is what you should do in a book. I mean, you always want to engage the reader and kind of pull them through it, and not want them to stop reading.
For sure, and that propulsion takes you to the end, and like you mentioned with Lost, that wasn't necessarily such a satisfying ending, but I think you really nailed the ending of Sin Titulo on an emotional and a physical story mystery type way. How does ending a massive project like that, how do you do it?
It's hard, and it was terrifying, and again, going back to Lost, like that show ended while I was working on Sin Titulo, and I remember being really dissatisfied with it, and all the buzz surrounding it was that it was a terrible ending, and so I was terrified with my own story, because when you have something that runs for that long and there's readers that are invested in it, it becomes a very difficult thing to provide an ending that's satisfying to yourself and hopefully to the readers as well. And as for how I did it, I don't know. I can't say. Well, there's a very simple formula I followed. It was just kind of instinctual, and I read through everything that I'd done so far and kind of identified all of the elements that I thought were established that were important to resolve, and just kind of made a list of those and made sure to tick them all off and come up with a way that I felt resolved them, but not in a way that was I wanted there to still be a little bit of ambiguity and openness to it, so that the individual reader can bring their own interpretation to it, which I think is a valuable thing, and I think that often by doing that, it can make the ending even more resonant if it's something that the individual reader has brought to it as well. So.
And speaking of interpretations, my impression upon rereading it was that it was very much a book, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was very much a book about fathers creating something, artists creating something, and then nurturing that, or nurturing that talent and working on that. And, can you speak to that at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's definitely a large part of it. It's not the sole interpretation of it, but you're not wrong in that. There's obviously a lot of it's autobiographical, with a thin veneer of fiction over top of it to not have it be a straight autobiography. But I mean, a lot of the stuff with the relationship between fathers and sons in that comic is something that is drawn from my own experience. So yeah, it's a very relevant theme.
And the main character learns a lot about himself as it goes along. It's a mystery on paper, but it's also an existential mystery. And is that something that you bring from your personal life? How conscious of that are you? How much of yourself do you want to bring to a story, and how much is too much?
I think I mean, every story is a reflection of the person who's telling it. Every character and every decision that every character makes are all, reflections of the writer's intellect or emotion or whatever. We're always telling you about ourselves in the construct of a story with characters and things. So it's definitely you can't help but being autobiographical in it. It was something that I brought into it almost by accident. I had the very first sort of flashback sequence in the story. I actually, it kind of surprised me. I was writing it and I thought of an incident from my childhood and wrote it in. And then I kind of thought that was an interesting thing, and I realized that this was going to be a book that was going to end up having a lot of autobiographical elements to it, and so it became a regular thing throughout the story, where it was kind of an interesting punctuation to the main narrative, the obviously more supernatural story, or however you want to describe it. I thought having these very, very grounded, very real, very honest flashbacks kind of punctuated the story. As for how much is too much, I don't know. I don't think there is too much, really. I mean, Joe Matt, do you know Joe Matt? Did a comic, Peep Show. He did a comic years ago where the entire issue was about him watching porn and masturbating. That may be too much. But it actually isn't, though, because I say that as a joke, but it's really not, because I admire the honesty of that. He did or Chester Brown did the Paying for It. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's a really great book. It's an autobiography about Chester Brown's experience with prostitutes, and it's really you read it and it's like, wow, I can't. But this is oversharing for sure. But I admire the bravery and the honesty of it, and I think that's something that's important. I think sincerity and honesty is always the thing that makes the story the best, and that's always going to come from your own experience.
Well, I think that definitely comes through in your work. And before I let you go, I promise I won't be the 1000th person to ask you about Sea Guy or any other Grant Morrison projects, but what else is next for you?
At the moment, I have Thunderworld, which is part of Multiversity, with Grant Morrison's 12-issue series, I think. So I did the Captain Marvel Shazam issue of that called Thunderworld. That's done. I don't know when it's going to come out. I think it might not be until next summer. I have the first script of the 3rd volume of Sea Guy, so I'll start that probably sometime next year. I'm working on a follow-up to Sin Titulo, not a direct sequel or anything, but just another book of my own, that's called Nero, which I'm also going to do online first and then in print. And then aside from that, I've also just been doing a lot of, I want to kind of do just kind of illustration work and art prints and things, and I've been doing a lot of that recently.
I've seen the little comics you've been doing too. You've been releasing on Twitter.
Yeah.
Those are kind of autobiographical too.
Absolutely, yeah, those are 100% autobiographical, and I'll literally draw those right after something funny happens, and I would do them just to kind of warm up or something, but they're fun to do. They're really loose. They take 10 minutes to draw, and but they're fun. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sitting down with us, Cameron, and everybody should go out and check out Sin Titulo. Hardcover just got released. It's wonderful. Won an Eisner Award. You don't need me to tell you that it's great, but it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.